Good morning, happy holidays, Brian. Thank you for the intro, I appreciate that. Dahlia and Nicole, thank you for being a judge and listening to the presentation today. Absolutely awesome to be here face to face. I love going first, so thank you for that. I have a special little surprise because we put me first, so that should be fun. So as Brian mentioned, my name is Ryan Shefke and I'm the CEO of Captello. We're not coffee, we're a software company primarily. Some people say Capitello, but Captello. What we're going to talk about today is the mouthful that Brian mentioned, and that is end-to-end universal lead capture and engagement solutions. Now, I want to break that down for you real quick. So raise your hand if you've heard of lead retrieval. Perfect. All 300 people in the audience have heard of lead retrieval. Perfect. So we don't like to retrieve leads, right? We like to capture our leads. So what we're defining here is universal lead capture. We're putting kind of a few additional phrases around lead capture. So end to end, I'm going to break that down for you. And then universal, I'll break that down as well. And then the really exciting part is the engagement solutions. So we'll talk about all those things. But to kind of put some context here, think about lead retrieval. These are solutions for exhibitors and solutions for organizers. So we kind of cross both of those worlds. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the pain points. So what are the issues that exhibitors face? Number one, consistency. So Nicole, I know you're VP of Marketing at IDG, Dahlia with your agency. What if I asked the two of you every month to use a new CRM? If you had to import your leads into a brand new system, learn all the rules, it would be a pain in the rear, right? Well, imagine, being an exhibitor, going to all these different events, trade shows, and you've got to deal with these disparate lead retrieval systems, right? You have different interfaces, you have different ways to get your leads. You might get your leads a week later, different timing. There's really no consistency. So exhibitors, they need a common solution that they can take with them. They can put it in their pocket and go to every event to capture their leads. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that leads fall through the cracks. I've been to hundreds of trade shows myself in exhibiting, and there really are two main problems, or two main goals, I should say, excuse me. Number one, exhibitors want to capture leads. They want leads, right? Number two, they want to raise awareness. They want to be there so that their customers see them, or they want to promote their brand. So it's really important to not be the 80% of companies or 80% of the leads that are not followed up with. So you got to make sure you follow up with your leads. That's super important. The third issue, third C here, is confusion. So the lead flow process is kind of a mess. I know with your business, you want to have a process, right? You need to know how to distribute your leads. You need to know how to qualify your leads. You've got to have a consistent flow. If there's confusion about what to do with your leads at an event, then there's going to be problems. So you got to have a process. That's really important. And then commercials. So it was actually a survey by a company called Display Wizard, and they asked the exhibitors, they said, hey, what are the top two challenges that you have? One of those top two, 54% of the exhibitors said they have a hard time measuring ROI. So it's crucial when you capture leads as an exhibitor that you have a way to connect that lead to an opportunity that might close in Salesforce or whatever CRM you might be using. So you've got to map that back. That's crucial, okay? I'm going to add two more C's, even though you don't see them, because I couldn't update my slides, I guess, afterward. So two more C's. We'll make it 6 C's. Number 5 is control, right? If you're an exhibitor, you're collecting leads, you're capturing data, you want to collect data that's meaningful to your business, data that you care about. If you're a cloud company, you want to collect information that's important to you. And so you want to make sure that you're not taking that sensitive information and you're not giving it back to somebody else. You want to control it and keep it in your possession, right? So you have data privacy issues. Also, it's really important that you take control of lead capture so that you can follow up, right? Don't leave that follow up to somebody else. And then the final C, I would say, is COVID. So a big challenge for exhibitors in this COVID environment is, how do you collect leads in virtual environments? How do you collect leads at a live event? Well, you need solutions. You need a platform that can engage and capture leads across all of those environments. I know it's a challenge, but these are solutions that again span virtual and live. So we solve all of these problems. Let me first start by describing universal, okay? What does that really mean? Well, you should be able to collect leads using any device, right? Basically, have your phone in your pocket, a smartphone. Could be iOS, could be Android, it could be a computer. So running on a browser, any device, you need to be able to capture your leads, okay? Also, anytime. It doesn't matter, like last night we were hanging out at the Reading terminal. I could have been scanning badges, you know, I got my smartphone in my pocket. So you gotta have a really good universal app that can collect leads, scan business cards, all of that, wherever you're at any time. The third aspect of universal is any method. So I mean badge scanning if you're an exhibitor, right? I mentioned business card scanning. We created a very unique method to scan business cards. You've probably heard of OCR, where you take a picture of a card and, you know, all the information shows up in the form. That can be pretty inaccurate. So we created a process where we take 5 human beings. We have an operations team, and these 5 human beings basically translate all the information and transcribe it and put it into a form, and then we take all the common information, match it, and then move that forward. So whether it's a business card, a badge scan, or manual input, we added 2 more methods because of COVID primarily. Method number 1 is being able to display a QR code so that you could take a smartphone and you could scan the QR code, and as an attendee, or if you're watching a presentation, I could ask everybody, hey, scan that QR code. You could fill in your info, submit it. All of this is going into one area, centralized data getting captured regardless of the method. And then the last point here, which I'll talk more about, is gamification. So we're adding gamification to help capture leads, okay? Any user. Our philosophy with this universal concept is that everybody from the CEO down to the person in the booth, whoever it might be, they should be able to capture leads. Again, any data, custom data, should be able to be your form that you customize to collect all your leads. All right, spent a lot of time on that slide, but the next one is end-to-end, okay? Well, what do we mean? We don't just mean as an exhibitor in your booth, scan the badge, and then wait to get your leads, you're done. End-to-end is sort of putting a bookmark from beginning to end around lead capture. So being able to respond, that's the number 2 on the slide. So we have the ability, once you capture a lead, to send them an email, to send them a postcard, send them a text message, send them a handwritten letter, all different ways of responding to the lead. And then qualifying. So we have some customers who say, hey, you know, I don't want to use my marketing automation system. I want to do all of this kind of in my own platform on the event team. So we can qualify the leads. We can grade them. We can score them depending on the rules that you might set for the business. We can qualify hot leads or leads that are not so hot for you. Transforming the data, you know, maybe before you get your information into Salesforce, you know, for Texas, that's where I'm from, maybe it needs to be TX for the state, but when you scan a badge, it's Texas. So you need a way to transform the data and format it before you get it into your end system. Enriching, one thing that our platform does is when we pull in new leads, we can append social information. So I might be able to identify that Brian, he's from Maryland if I didn't collect his location, and maybe his affinities, his LinkedIn profile, so that I could do my follow-up. So that's enriching data, making that data stronger and better before it goes in our platform. And then we also built a number of ways to get that information immediately into your CRM or your marketing automation platform. So it could be Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Marketo, HubSpot. We have all these connections and ways to take that data and push it immediately into wherever you're storing that data. And then I mentioned analyzing. So that ROI reporting is super important. We also do that. So I love this part because this is refreshing, this is new. A lot of the things I spoke about in lead capture, you're probably familiar with, but I'm betting you're not familiar with this. I've walked into big trade shows and events. There's two that I'm thinking of specifically. One, I walked in and there was this huge, if you remember Price is Right, still on, and there's the big spin the wheel, and I mean, can you imagine the money that was probably spent building that wheel, getting it into the trade show, setting it all up? And then there's another event, and you see it all the time, you take in this physical whack-a-mole table, and to haul that in and have it shipped and all of that, that's really expensive. So what we created is a suite of over 50 different games. You could call them activations as well. So if you could switch over here to the screen, Paul, is that possible? I'll just show the arcade real quick. So this right here is just a list of all of our games. We have games that educate, so trivia, Quetrix, which is basically like Jeopardy, but there's questions and it's a matrix, and so you can have points. There's Swipe, there's Rearrange Words, Memory Match. There's over 50 different games. But the cool thing is, this is not like you just get a game from the internet. You take our game, we provide a template, kind of a framework, and you can build your own game in 10 to 15 minutes. All these games have built-in lead capture. So if you're an exhibitor, you want to display a tablet with any of these games and have badge scanning built in, you can do that. We also built a leaderboard, so all of these games accrue points. You can try to play to get a spot on the leaderboard. If you're an organizer at an event, obviously you can have different exhibitors who have these games. You could set up games in your lobby, all different ways that can drive engagement for attendees. These are all brandable as well, so you could put logos on there. You can completely change the game, the questions, all of that is part of it. We also built a reward system, so we have over 250 gift cards in there. So if you do win a game or you're at the top of the leaderboard, we can send out gift cards, which I can explain further. So, and Brian, I know you gave me a signal. I think I might have spoke too long then, I guess. Okay.
Did you get through everything you wanted to?
No, but that's okay.
Okay.
If you want to, Paul, can you switch over to the other slides? Yeah. This is the fun part.
Stuff. I really like the gamification stuff. So just to make sure that I'm clear on that, because we were talking about a capture app that runs on a phone a lot, but that gamification can be put on big screens in a booth, right, as a display, right? Not just on the phone, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And you could run a game in a browser, you could put it on a tablet, or you could open a game, which we will do here at some point using a QR code, and so that's the fun trick we have.
I think that's, I mean, we've all seen it, we've all walked by the booths that they have some activity going on, something, especially if you're going to win something, like a bottle of wine, that always seems to bring people in. Well, it's a real driver of activity. Here's another question for that. You said you can customize the games. Logos are one thing, but can you make either like the questions or the words, like maybe in a word guess game or something, specific to your products, and so you can really make it about your company and your products, right?
You can is the short answer, and that's actually what I love, is the ability to push a certain message, right? So part of the challenge I think we have is you think, oh, it's a game, you know, you're making it too fun. But if you really want to educate, you could have the Jeopardy kind of game to create questions that push a message or educate your audience. And so that's one thing that we do, yes.
How does that, have any of your customers been able to use those games in a virtual event setting somehow?
They have, obviously because of COVID, you know,
Right.
virtual environments are prevalent, but the games, because they run anywhere, even in a browser, hopefully I'm not getting too fancy, but you can iframe the game into that virtual environment.
Right into your platform, basically.
And here's the neat thing, we're integrated with Swoogo, Bizzabo, and a host of other virtual environments, but what you don't want to do when you launch a game in that virtual environment is ask, hey, what's your name, right? Because you're not scanning badges,
Right.
but you're logged into that virtual environment. We know it's Brian Scott, so we have, with our integration, we don't ask them for their name. They can just go and play, accrue their points, and then they show up on the leaderboard.
Well, that's pretty big. Do you have a list of those services that you're already integrated with on your website or something that people can look at?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
We can provide more information, but we do have that on the website.
What, 5, 6, 8, 10, something of them, right?
There are, yeah. There's a host of them. That's correct, yeah.
We're going to jump in here.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Are we not fun enough? We're not fun enough?
All right. So, game's great. And actually, Brian did tackle one of the questions I had about virtual events and how to utilize games in the environment. I'd actually like to talk to you for explore a little bit more about how you enrich the data. That's intriguing to me. And what and from what sources are you enriching data, and what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So we use multiple.
And Dolly and I were having a bet as to whether or not we had the same questions. The good news is that you now have another question coming in from Dolly.
Perfect. Yep. And then Brian lost the mic, so unfortunate. So what sources? So we do work with a number of different sources to pull in the information, but the information that is displayed, all your social networks. So what we do is we take the email address of the individual, and at most events, you know, when you come in and you do play an activation or a game or use our mobile app to scan the lead and collect the lead, we're pulling in the email. So what we do is once that goes into our secure system, we take the email address and we match it across these various social networks. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, those accounts and your followers and any affinities there. You may have heard of Clout in the past, it's not there anymore, but we'll pull whatever we can in and we keep that in the system. You could use that information then to segment your database if you wanted to. Pulling in things like gender, male, female, you could do that. I know you would love that.
I'm going to go follow up.
Yeah,
on this.
sure.
Now, what about Nicole Peck? I decided to play a game today at Expo. And I'm now at an event. I'm at Pet Expo in a couple of months, and I do the same thing.
Yep.
Wow, where does the individual data of the individual events, are those starting to cross-populate and cross-event mix?
Good question. So in our platform, each event, so Pet Expo, do you really go to Pet Expo?
No, but it's
Oh.
on my bucket.
Definitely not the Flower Expo, I know that one too.
I don't go to Flower Expo.
Okay, so in our platform, we have a browser-based application. So if you're organizing the event, if you're for your team, you'd log into our platform, and each of the different events, they're separated, right? So the data is separate. You could see all your submissions. I would know Nicole went to event 1, Nicole went to event 2, but then all of that data, there's another layer on top of that. So similar to a marketing automation or CRM system, we call everybody a prospect. So once we take your event data, we sort of pull that in and you become a prospect. And you can define rules in our system so that maybe if you said your favorite color was red and then at the next one you said it's blue, we could merge it so you have red and blue. Not that you would pick two colors, I know that. So you could do that. So basically they all become a prospect. That's kind of the master database, and we can merge it, we can append it, do different things with the data. You define what you want to do.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, I am going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
So the first thing is in regards to the data and the profiling that you're doing, especially if you're pulling from social media, because a lot of times attendees or event participants don't use the same email when they're registering or on their social media. For example, LinkedIn. So that's one. So how do you stay consistent? So that's one question. A couple of data. The other thing is the crossover of Pet Expo and Flower Expo, etc., especially if they're owned or organized by different entities. Who owns the data? Because in the end, it's Dahlia's profile. So are you sharing that data with different organizers? How?
Yeah, so sure. I'll just jump in and address those two questions. So we don't share data. So if we have a client, Siemens or whoever it might be, a customer of ours, they have access to their data, right? They sign an agreement with us and they get into our system. So we don't share that. The technology is applicable to organizers, of course, as I mentioned, and they would have their own account, they can set up their own data, but we never share data. That would obviously be not cool in this day and age. But then consistency, it is imperative that you do have a business email. That's really, I know a lot of social networks, maybe not, I guess it depends, but typically, we depend on the email, right, to match it on those social networks. So if it's an email where you don't have a social network on, like your work account, we wouldn't be able to pull in data.
And so your goal here then is almost to be hub and spoke style with registration companies, virtual event platforms, etc., so that you become like integrated with them. When we talk about integrations and APIs, is that your core partners?
Yeah, so to date, we've done over 40 different integrations with registration providers, so that if you're an enterprise and you're going to hundreds of events a year and you want to collect leads through activations or games or the mobile app, you've got to tie in, it's called a developer kit or an API with the reg provider or badge provider. So yes, we tie in so that when we scan a badge, we can instantly pull in that information.
And how's that working for you? Integrations?
Wait a second.
Yeah.
So are you customer base for you is direct to our exhibitors, if you will. You're going direct to our customers. You're going to PepsiCo. You're going to IBM Direct. Correct?
That's part of it, but also organizers as well, right? When you're putting on an event and you want to have an activation like a photo booth in your lobby, right, to connect the live environments, and then now people that are remote, people remote could take a picture on their computer or do it here, and it's all the same gallery. So organizers can use this. There's a really cool concept here, Nicole, if I may explain it. If you're an organizer, you can monetize these games. They should be able to basically pay for themselves. You could have exhibitors buying these games and place it around.
Yeah. But I also like forcing the hand if you get our largest exhibitors and our largest customers on your platform. That's an interesting approach as well.
For sure.
You're going to force the hand and you're going to force the breakup or the adoption, if you will.
Yes. Versus your standard lead retrieval, you're saying, right?
Correct. As long as your device reads this barcode.
Right.
And this barcode has not been created in such a way that your device cannot read it.
Correct.
You're in good shape.
Yeah, we're being friendly with everybody, but there are certain things that we can do as a software company that we've really put into our app, like scheduling meetings right away, communicating with your staff, showing documentation, a bunch of unique things, voice or audio notes in the app. So we've done a ton, to make it interesting to these larger exhibitors, right?
And I guess, I'm sorry, one last follow-up. Because again, I'm thinking about that 80% follow-up challenge, which is the bane of the existence of every event organizer, I'd say. Is our exhibitors who said they had horrible ROI with us, terrible, they don't want to come back, and we know that it's because their own sales teams really didn't do proper follow-up. Right? That's really the biggest does the app have functionality that allows for Ryan to assign a lead to Nicole or to assign leads out? What does it look like as far as lead assignment, or is the assumption that that handles within a company's CRM, that doesn't take place within it?
Yeah, good question. All those controls, Nicole, are defined in our software. So if you're you go into our web app, you can configure that. So if Dahlia and Nicole were scanning leads, and Dahlia, you wanted to own the leads that you scan, then you can set those rules up. Alternatively, if you wanted a default owner, and then in our system, remember we help create process, right? So you could actually define your lead assignment rules within our software before it goes to the CRM or the marketing automation platform. So now these event teams, right, these organizers, event managers, they have the ability to take full control over their leads, their follow-up, their process. They don't have to go talk to the marketing team and to make a game. They can make one in 10 minutes and begin collecting leads. So all that control is in our platform. And that's honestly what makes us very unique as well.
Great platform. So,
Why, thank you.
yes, you're so welcome. So my last question to you is, how do you innovate from here?
So number one, we're creating anywhere from 2 to 3 new games every month. So we're doing that. And then also when you think about our current environment, and again, I mentioned we're not just, I like saying games because you get it, it's easy, but I also don't like referring to it because I think it minimizes the other things that we do. So I like to say activation. So creating other activations like, we already have this, but surveys and polls. I mentioned the photo booth. We are working on a speed networking concept, things that can be used in live and virtual environments based on the world that we're now in.
Hooks. We're working on hooks, additional hooks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Great questions, judges. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you, Ryan. Really
Thank you,
excellent
Brian. Yeah,
job.
appreciate it.
Really exciting project.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Do you want this back? Or?
30 minutes and a quarter till, yes, one of those things.
Oh, and I'm sorry, yes. See, this was the best part. We gotta keep it going. Oh wait, we need to go to this. Here we go. Okay, and I told you because you guys put me first, you know, I'm gonna make you pay for it. So, so this is one of our games, and here's an example. I would like for everybody in the audience, we're passing out the QR codes, and you can scan the QR code and you can play one of our games. And Brad built this game in a matter of minutes, and it's called Whack a Judge. So Dahlia, Nicole, and Brian, yes, that is your face in the game.
Excellent.
And by the way, there's a very simple form at the end of the game, and we're going to give you a gift card, and it's from our reward system, our catalog, so that you'll get that gift card regardless of how you do.
Very good. Everyone's hands down to their game now, so thank you very much.
Glad we did that at the end.